something bad to us, we are going to do things to you that have never been done before.
What the f*** is that, dude?
Oh, shit. Now the microphone's probably not working either. Hang on a second. Give me a minute. See if we can get this up working again. Ha! There it goes. Funny bugger's playing with my computer again, folks. How are you, beautiful people? Sorry about last night. There was a short one on None 2K just to let you know there wouldn't be a show, really. But, yeah, it's still stuck out in the dark as I was at that time of night when I should have been here talking to you. So my apologies. Just let me turn the phone on to silent because I'll just see whether or not Darren's replied. So kick off with that. Actually, no, I won't kick off with that. I'm going to kick off with comments tonight. So hello to everybody. I think Deborah was first in the room. Yep, Deborah Donnelly first in the room tonight with J1 closely behind, only a couple of minutes. Brett and the gorgeous Sunflower. Sunflower, I have sent you an email because of your status here with us. And Michelle, you will be in the chat too, no doubt. Being a couple of our admins, you ladies might be able to help me. Because you are admins on the None 2K channel, I don't have any access to it, but I'm told through a sneaky set of circumstances, you guys might have a bit of backroom access. So I'll email you too, Michelle, but I only sort of just emailed Sunflower just before we got going. But give me a call at some stage. Vince might have to talk us through it. We may not be able to have any luck at all, but if anybody is going to be able to get any back access to the to that channel, it'll be you guys. It certainly won't be me. So it would be a big help if we could get some access to the analytics. As I've said, it's not something I've ever really focused on. I couldn't have cared less if YouTube took me down, sort of wore it as a badge of honor. However, we're now in a position where we would like to be of some value to people, and therefore they want to know that we have an audience. And if they're going to advertise or going to sponsor the shows that we want to bring you in any way, shape or form, they want to know that there is an audience for it. And while you guys are absolutely wonderful and in here every night, I know there are many more that don't get involved in the chat. And I know from other areas that there are a lot more views. This program is being shared in a lot more places. It's being restreamed, I believe, in at least 2 or 3 places as we go live in different parts of the world. So hello to those folks. I have no problems with any of that. Nobody's ever asked if they could restream or carry on or do whatever, and I don't know that they actually have to, and I'm thankful for them to even bother, even if maybe 1 or 2 of them are trying to just share it amongst their troll mates. I don't care. The audience is the audience, and if you're going to watch, you're going to watch. You'll either troll me or you won't, and I think we've all figured out by now trolls have no real effect. If you come with a reasonable argument, then we'll have a chat. But abuse and carry on and all that sort of crap doesn't cut it. So not good at all. Let me just have a look. I did star a couple of comments here. Hey, Phil Cooker. This is not news I was expecting from you. Thursday, you go into a hospital for a small procedure. We will definitely keep you in our thoughts and prayers. And look, if it's only a small procedure, take solace in the fact that if you do have to go under, you won't have to go under long. They won't need to put a great deal of this shit in you. And I am struggling at the moment too with, I don't need surgery. Well, I hope I don't need surgery. But I'm struggling with the fact that I probably need to go to a dentist, and I'm a bit concerned about what they inject into your mouth. And I'm between a rock and a hard place. I go to the dentist and get whatever it is they're going to put into my mouth. Go to the dentist and don't get whatever it is they put into my mouth, and see if I can live with the pain of getting whatever it is done to me. And I can tell you, I don't think I'm that brave. And or there's the opportunity of not doing anything and waiting for my teeth to fall out, which is equally not a favourable option. So bring on the abundance, I say, because I'm going to need it. I'm going to need it. So, Phil, yeah, mate, we're with you, mate. And we look forward to your return. Hopefully, if it's only a small procedure, you'll be in and out in the day, and maybe you'll join us for Friday night or maybe next Monday with a bit of luck. So best of luck with that, brother. And if you need any help in any way, shape or form, just all you got to reach out. Your family is here for you, and you will be in our thoughts and prayers. All right, I'll just get back to the correct screen so I can start talking about a few things. I had this up earlier at the start of the show. The Biden administration put in 320,000 migrants secretly. They flew them in from different parts of South America and Mexico and took them into cities like Minneapolis and, well, a few others, that sort of region. They spread them right across the states, as a matter of fact. They didn't bother telling anybody about them. They just flew them in, got them off the plane, put them through a processing facility, put some money in their hand and sent them out. Now, you can be guaranteed there weren't too many mums and kids involved in all of that. And right now, it does seem like there is going to be a new threat. They're flagging it in America, but I have a sneaking suspicion that we are going to have some pretty big issues with it here in Australia as well. Will it be an issue, or will it be something we all embrace? Because we've been embracing multiculturalism here in Australia for many years. Our migrant intake has gone up considerably in the number of particularly subcontinent people that have been brought in. Coincidentally, the crime rate involving subcontinent people has gone through the roof, including most recently, that springs to mind, a murder in Melbourne, or in Point Cook to be more. I've heard of Point Cook called something else, and I hesitate to call it that, so I won't. No, I won't. But Point Cook is certainly a bit of an enclave for Indians, and this poor lady was found in a bin. In a locked garbage bin, somewhere up a track. You know, the husband disappeared, got on a plane with their 3-year-old son, went back to India, walked into the mother-in-law back in India, handed the son to the mother-in-law and walked out. He hasn't been seen since. Now, I know the Victorian police were pretty good. It took them years to track down the young Indian lad who ran over a number of people some years ago in Melbourne in a high-powered ute, I want to say it was. Of course, Indians love driving anything. Their ability, I question at times. Not all. Some of them are great drivers, but this one was, I think, driving a very high-powered V8 ute and managed to kill, I want to say it was more than one person, a number of people on a sidewalk in Melbourne. He immediately got on a plane using somebody else's ID and flew out of the country, and it took many, many years, but I do believe the Victorian police tracked him down. They may well still be in a battle to get him back to Australia. Puneet, I think his name was, or Punjab. But he may well have been brought back to Australia because there was a deal done with Modi, I believe, to get him back. But this bloke's going to be in the same bucket. Okay, and that's the bad end of the crime. That's the worst end of the crime, I suppose. But is it? There are so many criminal acts taking place at the moment, so many outrageous videos from migrants, from all areas. I don't want to single out Indians. There are Africans involved. There are Asians involved. There are, from all over. But predominantly, we're not importing too many Asians unless they're rich students from China or other places. And then they're supposedly going home again. These immigrants are people who will kill you for your sneakers, right? Even if the sneakers don't fit them. It's all about power. exercising power and control over others. And I don't make excuses for it, but when you look at the countries that some of these, particularly some of the African people have come from, they don't know any different. They've been brought up, their culture has been brought up with a very different value on life than you or I in a westernized country like Australia have been brought up with. So when the two cultures come together in such a way and in such numbers, it's no wonder that they band together and they follow essentially what they've been doing for centuries, and that is marauding to survive, fighting amongst themselves or the others around them for survival. Doesn't mean they're all inherently bad people. I don't suggest that for one moment. It's just the clashing of cultures and the fact that we are overloading that at the moment here in Australia. And they are considerably worried about more of it coming into America.
I guarantee you what's getting ready to happen. I'm hearing rumors, 400,000, 500,000, 600,000 of these Palestinians in Gaza, we're going to fly them in here and make them citizens. That's the next thing.
You're making news here. Hit us with that again.
Well, think about it. They're not going to take them in.
Egypt not going to do it.
No, they're not going to take them in. Well, they know who they are.
Jordan says no thanks. We kicked them out. We kicked them out. No thanks.
The Saudis aren't going to take them. Nobody wants them. And so what's going to happen is old Joe, to win back his base, because a lot of them have gotten killed, said, okay, we'll bring in 500,000, 600,000, 700,000 of them. We'll fly them in. I mean, he doesn't even have to tell us he's doing it. Did he tell us about 325,000 he's flown in? No. They do things and don't tell you. And so they'll bring them in, like the ones that Obama brought into Minneapolis and Minnesota and, all the, was it Somalians, I think?
Somalia.
Yeah, brought all those people in.
We got Omar because of that.
Yeah, well, get ready. Here they come.
Now, I had a job some years ago, driving limos, where tracking aircraft was a bit of a thing. At that time, the red-headed clown was in power, and there were some detainees on Nauru that needed to be housed somewhere. And there was a deal done in a back room somewhere. I think some of them got to go to New Zealand, some of them got to go to America or Canada. But the rest of them were meant to come here. And these were ones that had already been rejected through our immigration system. The Australian government didn't want the Australian people knowing that they were back in Australia. They had to be taken out of Nauru, or there would have been, well, let's just say the Nauruans would have sorted the problem out. So these people were brought back to Australia on clandestine flights, military flights. Well, they weren't unnumbered. We wouldn't have been able to track them, but they were identified in a certain way so that we knew that they were ostensibly a diplomatic flight. And they were coming into Brisbane Airport, which we, in a lot of cases, if it wasn't me, it was others who had airside access, because we picked up people from private planes and all that sort of stuff. So we had airside access. It wasn't unusual to have limos hanging around while these aircraft were landing and all that sort of stuff. So we knew that was going on back then. I also know that there were aircraft coming in from Christmas Island at the time. So ostensibly what they have been doing in America, they have already trialled here in Australia, back when the red-headed clown and crud had a go at our immigration policies, and we had 50,000 illegal arrivals in such a short period of time. Now that we've got, the red-headed clown and friends in power, they have defunded our defence forces, certainly our Navy, to a position where either they cannot put patrol boats in that bit of water between Indonesia and Western Australia, Northern Territory, with enough frequency to stop the boat arrivals, or to at least recognise that they're even there. Now, I have it on some pretty good authority that most of our patrol boats are out of action for a couple of reasons. Some of those reasons are maintenance orientated, where they've got to do complete workovers of boats and all that. This is planned maintenance. This is something that's been in the works for years, and they have these boats in a rotation, so they're always in tip-top fighting condition, so to speak. Wow. Not since Labor got in power, and I probably suggest the preceding government with Malcolm Turnbull and co and little Scotty wouldn't have been helping. So our patrol boats are not in a great position to be out there patrolling, doing the things they're meant to do. Coast Watch, we have a number of Coast Watch aircraft, and there are people in this movement far better versed than me on Coast Watch's capabilities, and maybe if the bloke I'm thinking of sees this video and wants to enlighten us a bit more about that, whatever he's allowed to tell us, then I would be joyful to have him on board. But I don't know exactly how much he can say. But we have a number of Coast Watch aircraft. Are they actually, where are they flying? Are they in the air? I haven't seen a Coast Watch aircraft in a long time, which I guess isn't surprising given I live well south of the well, I was going to say the equator, but we're all that. South of, I don't know, Capricornia or areas where people might be able to land without being seen. Far North Queensland, I imagine, and across the top of Australia is where most of these aircraft will be located, and possibly out of Tasmania as well, looking for traffic that might be trying to come through the Great Southern Ocean. So I'm not surprised I haven't seen them, but I'd be interested to know if you are seeing them wherever you are in Western Australia and Northern Territory and Far North Queensland. Are they regular? Are you seeing them along the coast regularly? I used to see them quite a lot now that I think about it, but haven't seen them in a long time. I was in at Ainslie Bullion today. Cass is in town. She needed to do a bit of work. I needed to see them. She needed to see them. So we thought, what a great opportunity. We'll go in and see them. So we did. Had a very interesting conversation. Bitcoin, of course, at the moment, going through the roof. If you are lucky enough, God love you, if you are lucky enough to own Bitcoin, congratulations to you. And I suppose if you are lucky enough to own it, you're also smart enough to know don't sell it yet. That, and here endeth my knowledge and espousing on Bitcoin. That's all I can tell you. Great to have it. Don't sell it yet. It's going to get bigger. For those of you who have no Bitcoin, and you can buy a 15th of a wiener's bit of a Bitcoin. You don't have to buy the whole Bitcoin. You can just get in on it. As I said, I was talking to somebody the other day who has a 15th of a Bitcoin, and it was worth $14,000. Today, it will be worth considerably more because I think the price today was up at, I want to say it was 116,000. And still going up. There are predictions that it will go past $250,000 before the middle of next year, when the cycle is expected to go pop and everything will fall back down again. Now, this is where playing in the Bitcoin world, I suppose, gets very nerve-wracking and makes you a bit anxious, certainly me, because I don't want to be one of those people who has to sit at a screen and watch this little line creep up and predict when it's going to drop, because I know I'm going to be on the backside of that drop because I don't have the knowledge, I don't have the historical ability to back up that knowledge, and much less the actual brains, I think, to understand how it works. However, there are people out there and there are companies out there doing that sort of thing, and watch this space is what I will say about that. Today, we spoke about that and gold. Okay, so gold hit over $3,300 an ounce over the weekend. It's dropped back a little bit now. I think I wrote it down before. It's dropped down on the Ainslie side at least to $3,294.42 an ounce. That's the spot price. And silver was at $36.70. So gold, if you've been following the market recently, and if you're lucky enough to own any, you will have seen has taken a trajectory. In fact, Cass was telling me today that since the start of the year, what are we, March 12, since January 1st of this year, gold has gone up 17%. 17%. Now we see Bitcoin going up, doing its thing. And my first question today when we sat down at the table, I looked Paul straight in the eye and I said, why hasn't silver gone up? Pretty much like that. He was a bit shocked. We had a bit of a laugh. I said I wasn't angry, but it's a bit of a query. We're seeing Bitcoin go up. We're seeing gold, constantly rising. We're seeing silver doing these slow little incrementic crawls. And I'm like you. I'm down to the bones of my ass. I have a very, very tiny amount of silver. And if I have to sell some of it, then I'll have to sell some of it. But if that comes into play, then I've got to wonder which side of the market am I on? Because, to sell it now, well, great. It'll get me whatever money that it is required, pay the rent, do whatever I've got to do with it. But then is silver going to go through the roof by the end of this week or at the end of next week or next month or whenever? And I guess this is the conundrum if you're like me, bones of your ass, but you have a little bit of this silver tucked away somewhere. How much of it do you sell and when is the question? I would advise you to hook up to the Ainslie newsletter. It comes out every week. And just the market information on what's going up, what's going down, what other impacting factors on all of the commodities markets are, and analysis, historical analysis of that, really beneficial to figure out which side of the curve you're on. And at the moment, the explanation that I got from the boys today, and it's well researched and able to be documented in every way, shape, and form, is that silver is following the trend. So in the last couple of cycles where we've seen Bitcoin and gold go through these growth periods, shall we call them, silver has lagged behind, but it has eventually, like a coiled spring, shot off and done its thing, and then comes back to a more reasoned price. So I think the coiled spring analogy is really good. So think of your silver like that at the moment, particularly if you're thinking about getting rid of any of it so that you can pay a bill or two. Hang off. I don't know for how long, but the advice is at the moment, if you don't have to sell, don't sell. If you can buy, buy. And of course, there are plenty of people you can buy from, but I trust the Ainslie guys today. And in fact, had another conversation with them today, took a camera thinking I might be able to sneak into their the vault in Brisbane and be able to show that to you. But unfortunately, the vault manager was away today and he was having a sick day. So I wasn't able to go in and film, but I was able to go in and have a bit of a look. And can I tell you, folks, every time, I've only been there a couple of times, but every time I get there, I hear the Get Smart music. Dun, 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 dun. It's like all these closing doors at the end there, that end sequence. Well, that's a bit like what it's like getting into the vault. It's a highly, highly secure area. Maybe not as secure as Control, but one day we'll talk about Get Smart. Interesting that the good guys were called Control and the bad guys were called Chaos, don't you think? But that's a whole other story. We'll get into it another time. Part of the programming that we endured through the 60s and 70s. Anyway, what a magnificent place the vault is. And people have asked about it being secure. And I can tell you, bloody secure, bloody secure. So we will be allowed to go down there and we will be able to show you certain aspects of the vault. We'll be able to show you the different sizes that are available because not everybody has a great amount of silver or gold. And some people do have a great amount of silver, which becomes problematic. Like I said, I do have a friend somewhere who's got 600 kilos of silver and doesn't know how to hide it, where to store it, because it's quite a large lump. So it's posed him problems. Well, in somewhere like the vault, there are no problems like that. However, there are certain restrictions to access, which you've got to be welcome and able to deal with. So some people don't want to deal with that, don't need a vault, they'll look after it themselves. All good. But others, particularly maybe if you've got your superannuation and you don't feel happy about having your superannuation in a safe under the floor in the house, then you might want to put your superannuation in a vault. And that vault, you can be guaranteed, well, how can you ever say something is absolutely 100% impenetrable? But I've got to tell you, if that's not 100% impenetrable, then I'm pretty sure they'll be insured to the point where it won't matter if they were broken into. So you can find that out by asking Ainslie. And I see Ainslie are doing a lot of online advertising at the moment through Facebook, where if you feel the urge, maybe you will like me, you've never seen gold in a coin or a tablet form or in any of its forms, really. You can go into Ainslie with no obligation to buy and say, oh, look, can you show me some gold, please? I mean, in fact, they've got a cabinet of it right in their front office. You can't touch it in there, but if you go inside, you'll be allowed to touch it, feel it, smell it, see what it's really like. It's quite different, a kilo of silver versus a kilo of gold, and put them in your hands and see the difference. But Ainslie, they're often giving people the experience, because eventually you'll have the drive to go and spend that, $40 on a silver coin, or if you're lucky enough to have a bit more and get into some gold, well, you can buy gold like you can buy silver from the gram up to multiple kilos at a time. So it's really whatever your budget can afford and whatever your fancy takes. So Ainslie are open to that with a no obligation policy. Go in, have a bit of a look, and see what happens. And once again, a terribly secure place that you're going into just at Ainslie's, both in Melbourne and in Brisbane at the Creek Street office on level 6 there. It's funny sometimes. I won't talk about that. I take notice of security. That's all. It's just things I look for, and it's interesting to see subtle security. You're well protected when there's subtle security around. So have absolutely no doubt that you will be looked after with Ainslie, and we will be hitting the road with Ainslie. In fact, I got an email earlier today from Katrina in Melbourne saying, I think it's the last week of April, from I think the 22nd of April, Ainslie, Cass, and myself, they've asked me along to come along and host their shows. So we're heading back to Victoria. So I think that's going to be in Western Victoria initially. I think it'll be Horsham, may not be this order, but Horsham, Hamilton, Warrnambool, Colac. There will be shows along the Murray and Wangaratta and Albury as well. I'm not sure. I want to say the girls at my place, Vic West, Beck from Truth Seeker TV, and Doris and Maddie from Vic West Organics. I think there'll be a show there as well with Ainslie, Cass, and myself. Now, we won't put those shows to air as a live show. I might do a show from there, either prior or post our live shows there, but or I might do something else during the day. We'll just see how the timing works out and how many kilometres have to be driven. But I'll still be doing something at some point. Timing will just have to be a little bit flexible at that time. But Victoria, we're coming your way. And then when I'm done in Victoria, we'll be heading back to Queensland, washing my clothes and heading to far north Queensland. I dare say probably changing my clothes. I'll be able to leave the long johns and the long shirts behind and head north. Now, Ainslie are also planning a tour into far north Queensland and central Queensland, where you'll be able to learn about gold, silver, and the other precious metals that you can invest in. Cass will be along at certain parts of that journey too, I believe, to bring us up to speed with self-managed super funds. And if you have any questions about that, and in fact, if you've got any questions about self-managed super funds now, Cass is available right now, cass@vofhq.com. We'll get a fairly fast response, and she'll send you back a questionnaire to fill out. Once you've done that, really, it's a matter of ticking the boxes, supplying the information, and it could be as little as 2 weeks, and you could have your super back under your control. And at this time, that might be what could be the best thing for you. I think it would be the best thing for you at any time, but there's a lot of interesting things happening in the financial markets at the moment. And I received an email the other day, which I cannot find in the pile of email. I thought I'd saved the whole thing or screenshot it or something, but I clearly haven't. Somebody sent me an email from the National Australia Bank. The terminology used in this email was very interesting. It was referring to a global transfer of wealth. The greatest shift of wealth in history. I've phrased it this way a couple of times throughout the document. In the first paragraph, from what I remember, and I would show it to you, but like I say, I've lost the bloody thing. In the first paragraph of it, it referred to a global change and shift in wealth for everybody. I'm paraphrasing, that's broadly speaking, the paragraph was quite long. They use fluff words, but it's the words that they've used that particularly piqued my interest. In the second and third paragraphs, I think it was, of this note from NAB, whether it came from a web page or was something that had been scanned and sent to me, I can't remember. And that will make a difference because I haven't interrogated the website for it. I have tried to look on the NAB website for it under superannuation and other things and haven't been able to find it as of yet, but I've only had a cursory glance. And this is where these second and third paragraphs were leading. They mentioned inheritances, big gifts or bequeathments. Now, yes, that is a big shift in wealth within a family when someone passes away. And if there is a sizable will to be split up, then yes, can understand that. But we're not talking about that. Their first lines and their headline was a global shift in wealth, in the balance of wealth. The words they were using are not similar to, but exactly the same as the phraseology used when referring, people who are espousing Nasara Jasara. But the examples that they use in this document are, while life-changing for some people, certainly, depending on the size of the will and whatever else, doesn't quite equate to a headline of, a global shift in wealth and how you've got to get involved. And then it turns into a sell about what you can do with your wealth, which they've kind of attributed to a bequeathment of will or a gift or, something that's come into your possession, by surprise. Once again, this is a personal thing, and unless it's, it doesn't matter the value of it, it's a shift in your life, not mine. Whereas their headline refers to a global shift in wealth and abundance. Didn't say abundance, but that's essentially what it's getting to in this document. That indicates to me a more broader, going to happen to everybody. In fact, they say it's going to affect everybody. And this, to me, then turns into the second and third or final paragraphs turn into a sell from NAB for you to invest money in their product, whether that be a super product or a long-term investment product or whatever. It turns into a sell for them to get their hands back on whatever shift in global wealth means to you. I would be very aware of two things about that: the terminology, the phraseology that they use, and depending on which side of the fence you are with Nasara Jassara, that'll mean good or bad things, I guess. I've forgotten what the second thing is. Isn't that awful? At any rate, it's going to be an interesting time. Watch this space. I don't think I had anything further to share about that, other than we're hitting the road. There's going to be a lot more things we're going to do in far north Queensland. It won't be just Ainslie stuff. Those guys will be along for the ride at certain times, but we plan on spending a fair bit of time in far north Queensland. It's a bloody long way to go. So we figure if we're going to go up there, we're going to help as many communities as we possibly can. And my place communities in far north and central Queensland, we want to hear from you. Let us know. I'll let you know whenabouts we'll be heading up. At this stage, it'll be early May, and we're going to be working in conjunction with the Cairns News and hopefully maybe share their part of the world. And should you maybe be looking for a holiday or something at some stage, you might choose to go and check them out or something like that. If you are one of those businesses, please let me know. Carl@vofhq.com. We would love to come along and feature your business and let people share in the joy that you bring. It's a big part of what Voice of Freedom, a big part of my place, and a big part of what the Freedom Broadcasting Network will be when we get that better established. And I'm having some meetings on Friday with two key gentlemen who will be involved, I hope, in the playing out of the FBN, both radio and website, which we're working on in the background, have been for some time. But Vince, because I think you're aware now that I don't have much ability other than being able to talk. Vince looks after all our IT, and I'm indebted to him in more ways than I can possibly tell you, because he does it all for nothing. I'm not in a position to pay him. If I was, I would. We want to be in a position not to pay him some huge wage so he can become a rich man. At the moment, he does so much. In fact, he was paying for certain websites and access for us to keep things open out of his own pocket for quite some time. He's not doing that anymore, but he's always been there to help, and he does it for nothing. So yes, if we're able to make a few dollars at some point by helping an event, by putting our cameras up and letting the world see that event, then yes, I would love to be able to help Vince out with a bit of that money, but I can't do it by myself. And that's why your donations are so important. That's why sponsorship money from clients, people like Cass and the team from Freedom Financial Solutions, who've got right behind us in a deep and very meaningful way. However, they can't fund the whole journey. And this has always been something of the people, by the people, for the people. I've figured if the people weren't going to get involved, they wouldn't be watching. So if you're watching this, then I figure you are involved. We need your help. We need your help. Don't think for a moment I don't go cap in hand to lots of places. The last couple of weeks has been particularly difficult because I have been stymied at every turn with analytics. And as disappointing as that is, I have been able to show other metrics, namely bums on seats, people walking through doors, which are great. But when you're talking with, sometimes you're talking with marketing people who just got out of university and they learned everything then. They know more than I've forgotten. So you've got to deal with that type. And of course, everything comes with numbers. So I need to take a lot more care of my numbers. And you need to know that YouTube ain't the home for Voice of Freedom, I don't think, for much longer. You need to get onto the Rumble channel, Voice of Freedom on Rumble. You can join Project Matilda, although Project Matilda, I noticed, are going to have a bit of a change in what they're doing in the next month or so too. I'm pretty sure live streaming will still be part of that, but we'll just have to wait and see. Of course, Cairns News on their Rumble channel. We live stream there all the time. I'm live streaming to the Oz Eyes Twitter channel as we speak, into both my Facebook page and the Wake Up Facebook channel as well. So there's quite a lot of folks who watch on various different platforms. And I can get some analytics for some and get nothing for others. Of course, we know the channels have been suppressed for, well, years now. So I'm not expecting great numbers, but numbers better than none. How would that be? Got a fantastic note today from some folks in South Australia who have asked about tanks they found on the Eyre Peninsula. Now, the Eyre Peninsula is home to an army training ground, and I wouldn't be at all surprised to find that there are tanks there. However, there were apparently a lot of tanks. Now, I don't remember how many tanks. We retired the Leopard tanks a long time ago. So I've asked for a bit of a clarification on what tanks means. I'm not sure if there are any Abrams tanks in Australia at the moment. We were going to buy some, but I don't know if they got here. That could be some, but we wouldn't have bought hundreds of them. I wonder how many were there. If you're on the Eyre Peninsula and you happen to know where where they're all at the moment, be interesting to get a bit of an idea of numbers. But were they ASLAVs or wheeled things rather than tracked? I'm very interested in the colour scheme of them. Were they identifiable as Australian Army vehicles? Bearing in mind the Air Force have no need for tanks and the Navy find they sink. They're used much better as anchors. So are there any identifying Australian Army insignia on any of them? And what are they painted like? Are they painted in an olive, as our normal Australian bush vehicles have been in the past, our tanks, or are they camoed to an Australian bush or even a desert style? Or do they have the grey, the white, the black, the blue, the white, the black camo pattern? I'm very interested in those particularly blue shaded camo pattern vehicles because my understanding is that they are not under Australian military control. They are actually owned by different entities, NGOs, non-government organisations, is what I'm led to believe. We will see. If you want to send me the details of Vernon Coleman and what's he been targeted for, I'm afraid his name doesn't ring my bell. I'm sorry. I read a lot, or maybe I have read about him, but the name doesn't ring a bell at the moment. So, but yes, if there is a story to tell, that's what the Voice of Freedom is all about. We want to tell your story. No chat on Rumble. Catafly, is Aussie Sue okay? I have not seen Aussie Sue in the chat tonight, so I am unaware of whether or not she is... No, I can't see Sue in the chat here tonight. So I'm unaware if she is back under the weather or not. So can't help you with that. Just answering a few questions off that screen, folks. So that's Rumble in... where's that one? That's the Voice of Freedom Rumble channel. Let me just see if anybody's poked their head up. Oh, yeah. G'day, Sonia and Co-Charger in the Cairns News site. Nice to have some people commenting in there tonight too. Some dentists still have happy gas, Sonia. Geez, look, is that enough? Don't you need like numbing stuff as well? I mean, I could laugh my way through it, but maybe try get prescription green stick. Oh, oh, that looked bad. What do they call it? The green whistle. Yeah, I don't know. Pethidine. Don't think you're allowed to have that. You always used to have your teeth drilled for fillings as a kid with no needles. I could probably get away with the no needles. I have a bit of a dental phobia, Sonia. Not. I had, as a kid, being a man of a certain age, and if you are around my age, you probably experienced this same thing. There was a change in dentistry in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s, and dentists found new ways and new things to shove in your teeth. My parents were diligent with me, brushing teeth, and every 6 months having the teeth checked all my life. And I've had great teeth all my life. I've been very, very fortunate. Things are starting to wear out in certain places now, which is a bit of a problem. But up until now, if you like, I've had really, really, really good teeth. However, the dentist that we went to, who was in Horsham in Victoria, he had 36 hairs I could count up his right nostril and 42 up his left. That's all I remember looking at while he was digging into my mouth. And the drill. I have a bit of a problem with the sound of the drill. Getting past that has been hard. I have had fillings, but he put those, I think it was 3 fillings I didn't have to have. He told my parents he did them for practice, wouldn't charge them for it. Some years later, I had to have those fillings taken out because whatever he used in them had to be taken out. So, and because I hadn't been as diligent at going to the dentist since I was an adult, I wasn't going every 6 months. When a dentist finally saw me and caught this, they said, "Oh, that'll have to come out. That'll have to come out. That'll have to come out." And I was like, "Oh, great." So, that was a day in my life. Not quite as traumatic as the day the doctor said, "Oh, that wisdom tooth, we'll have to pull that out." However, there was a story about the assistant that made that a whole lot better. I can't tell that story here, unfortunately. But it did make that experience a whole lot more enjoyable. You're supposed to get an operation on your tooth. Sideways in the gum. Yep. Yeah, I'm thinking, Donna, I'm the same. I'm going to live with it for as long as I can and do the best that I can not to damage anything anymore. Oh, really? Now there's an interesting one. Bentonite clay. Will it grow a tooth back? I've got a broken tooth in my mouth. The top part came out, but not the bottom. And just waiting for it to go bad. I'm not wishing it on myself, so let's not go there. What else was I going to talk about here? Oh, yeah, resources. Now, you may have seen this. It's been floating around for a couple of days. I ummed and ahed about playing it, but I do think that it is worth discussion because I don't understand how, as Australians, we don't get to enjoy in the spoils of our nation. As citizens, sovereign citizens, or sovereigns of this land, when you were born, you are allocated a portion of this land. This relates to your CQV trust. Now, smarter men than I, much, much, much longer ago than you might think, figured out an equation about world population and what each person in that population would own by way of land. Some land has nothing under it by way of resources. Some land, like Australia's, is very fertile with resources. Some countries, and let me say Saudi Arabia is a great example of this, or the oil-producing companies are great examples of this. Their citizens get a share of the oil revenue, the sales, the global oil sales. But here's this bloke to tell you more.
Oi, what's that? 1,301, 1,000. Oh, yeah, I'm just counting the money that the government here in Alaska just gave me. What, you lost your job? No, it's oil money. What is that? Well, because I live in Alaska and Alaska has lots of oil, when the oil companies take the oil and sell it and make a profit, all the residents of Alaska get a dividend. An oil dividend. Whoa, that is awesome. What are you doing now? Oh, sorry, now I'm just counting my son's oil money. He gets money too? Well, he owns oil just as much as every other Alaskan resident. Oh, yeah, I guess. Oh, hey, I mean, talk about the lucky country. You've got every mineral under the sun in the ground there. You must be getting so many mining dividends. No. A coal dividend? Nah. A gas dividend? Nope. Uranium dividend? Nah. Lithium dividend? Nope. Well, you exported just as much oil as we did, and you're telling me you don't get an oil dividend? No. Actually, I think we subsidize our fossil fuel companies more than they pay us in royalties. What? Come on. Oh, hang on. You pay them to take your resources so that they can make billions of dollars. And you're not getting a dividend. You don't have to laugh. You're getting scammed, bro. Yeah, okay, I guess we're not as progressive as you guys. What'd you call me? I voted for Trump.
Love it. Love it. Every word of it's true. Okay? Every word of it's true. Where in our history did Australia lose out on that? Because I'm not asking and going to tell you because I don't know. But I'd be keen to find out. When did we give up our right to our portion of our land? Every person born on this land gets a share of it. Now, look, 1,300 Canadian isn't going to change anybody's world. But that's just their oil revenue. I can tell you that in places like the UAE, it's a lot more than that. A lot more. In fact, if you've ever been over there, you'll notice, particularly in Saudi Arabia, that the Saudis own the businesses, but they don't run them or operate them. They have Indians and Pakistanis to operate them. That's the way they work. They are paid enough not to have to bother working in the business themselves. They manage it, they run it. But for the most part, it's fully staffed by immigrants because their government pays them an oil royalty. Iron ore, coal, uranium, lithium, nickel, copper, gold. Second largest gold producer in the world, us, with the highest quality gold out of the ground. The highest purity gold out of the ground in the world. I was sent a very interesting video about the gold industry and the production of gold bars. We're getting a bit long in the tooth to talk about it now, but very interesting video to watch and understand where gold comes from, where gold goes, how it's produced, where it's produced, and then how it's processed. It's a very interesting process. And it has some very interesting things attached to it that might make you go, Speaking of things that make you go, this happened in Los Angeles over the weekend. Yep, I know it doesn't look terribly thrilling, but that there is a cannabis processing plant that went up in flames. So cannabis sales being legal in California, they have these big plants where they process, grow, and then ship it out into their other business sales and all that. This is quite a large one, apparently. All went up in flames. No one cared. Just thought that was funny. This happened in Western Australia. Now, I won't go into what he said, but he was doing a comparison. Can we say that? I wonder whether or not there will be any way the West Australian government could justify that in a court of law, and we'll be interested to find out whether or not that is the way that is going to go. I suspect that it probably will. Do you remember the Wiener laptop? It's back in the news. This is interesting. Now, you might remember the NYPD seized this computer during a search warrant. This was back prior, I think, to 2016. Detectives discovered a trove of over 500,000 emails to and from Hillary, Uma Aberdeen, and other insiders during her tenure as the Secretary of State. The contents of those emails sparked an FBI to open or reopen its defunct email investigation of Clinton on Friday. But new revelations on the contents of that laptop, according to law enforcement sources, implicate the Democratic presidential candidate. They're talking about Hillary here, her subordinates, and even selected elected officials in far more alleged serious crimes than mishandling classified and top secret email, sources said. They went on to detail that as money laundering, child exploitation, sex crimes with minors, perjury, pay to play through the Clinton Foundation, obstruction of justice, and other felony crimes. I bring this up because it is a reasonably old bit of information, but I bring it up because more of these sealed indictments are coming out on a daily basis. We are seeing a lot of people who were in that administration that is being referred to there, either resigning their job. John Kerry's gone, the assistant secretary to the Muppet who's running the Justice Department's gone. There are all these rats, trying to jump off the sinking ship. And that's just in the US. I wonder whether or not some of the revelations that have come out of the UK over the weekend might have something to do with that. If ever there was any doubt that Donald Trump was spied upon going into, prior to, and after the 2016 US presidential election, let that doubt be expelled now. This is a top secret document from GCHQ, which is essentially MI6 in the UK, the Britain's highest spy agency, and the one James Bond would work for, if you like. Now, in this document, it outlines an application to renew a warrant to surveil a couple of floors in Trump Towers, the 5th and the 26th floors of Trump Towers. They also make a request to continue the surveillance after he was elected president because, they were worried about information being compromised by the incoming Trump administration. That was done under Obama's watch. Obama was the president when that was ordered. There are other documents from Rice giving further details, Condoleezza Rice, on other highly illegal operations carried out against Trump. You might want to recall when we were talking about that, because, there was talk about that 2016, 2017. It's not new to those of us who've been in the game that long. But it might be new to you if you haven't been following it. But that is 100% what we said had happened. 100%. And Donald Trump, when he found out that he was being surveilled, he left Trump Tower. You might go back and check. There was this huge hue and cry about Trump Tower. They're losing the president-elect. And he's never been back. To my knowledge, he certainly doesn't go and stay there. He doesn't maintain an office there. While there might be one there for him, he doesn't enter it, doesn't go to it. To my knowledge, he has never set a foot back inside Trump Tower since he found out that he was being surveilled there, and surveilled at every level. Audio, video, the whole deal. So it happened. What are we now? Nearly 10 years later. And some of these documents are starting to come out. I read a very interesting story over the weekend involving that, or an aircraft like that. Now, we know that that is an airborne laser system mounted on a Air Force 747. It is originally designed back in the 90s to intercept intercontinental ballistic missiles and burn them out during their boost phase. If that doesn't mean anything to you, when a nuke is launched, an intercontinental ballistic missile gets fired. It goes into an initial boost phase where it will get progressively faster and faster and faster until it reaches apogee, which point it will turn around and come back down on its target. This particular weapon, wrong one, that particular weapon, which is the nose of that aircraft, was a very high power laser designed to focus in on a fast moving, very, very fast moving intercontinental ballistic missile and burn a hole inside of it, have it blow up in its boost phase. Very hard to catch an ICBM once it's reached apogee and is starting to come back down, because they just get faster. Anyway, we've since learned that while that program was supposedly decommissioned back in the early noughties, and in fact that aircraft, or a version of it, was put into the boneyard as evidence that it had been stripped out and was no longer operational. And as far as most people knew, there was only one of those aircraft ever built. It was an experimental aircraft. Turns out that wasn't the case. There were 4 of them built. And while one of them looked like it had been destroyed, it hadn't been. What had been put in the boneyard was bits of plastic and foam, so that aerial reconnaissance would look like that's what it was. And they use these fakes all the time, particularly in war zones around airports. We saw a great example of one a little while ago in Afghanistan, when Biden removed all the troops. Remember that great picture of all those people clinging to the bottom of a C-17 that had been left on the runway? Except it was a blow-up C-17. It wasn't a real one. It was a dummy. They leave them all the time. So air raids blow up dummies, not real aircraft. But anyway, I'm digressing. That's another story. What has apparently happened with these aircraft, which have variously been described as the weapons being used to start wildfires in Hawaii recently, and there's been some suggestion that they were used, one of these aircraft was used on the Texas Panhandle fires, which were the worst in American history. The loss of livestock is still being counted. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of livestock, either dead or needing to be put down. Milking cows because their udders have been burned, and it'll take too long for their udders to repair. Their milk production will kill them. So farmers have got no choice but to put them down. It's just the world's most horrific thing. At any rate, the story came out from Real Raw News over the weekend that one of these aircraft had been located, and a special forces team had been sent in to destroy it. It was destroyed. Another one of them has been identified. Location they think they know, but 2 are still missing. They believe, given the flight records of the one that was destroyed over the weekend, in a not big explosion. It was destroyed in what looked to be like a hangar fire. So no big explosions or anything like that, just a fire that decimated everything. Probably had a bit of thermite in there, just to make sure it kept burning. But now there has been a global call put out for people to keep an eye out for any aircraft that looks like this. Now, these are, fairly striking aircraft. They are able to refuel while flying, and the odds of you seeing one drop into the airport near you are probably not really high. However, I was talking to someone about it today, and I know there are certain people that watch this show who might find new information at various different times from things I say. This might be one of those times. There is a 15,000 metre long runway in Western Australia, in one of the most secluded parts of Australia. It has underground hangars large enough to house the space shuttle and a 747 and the crane needed to put the space shuttle on the 747. This strip was a former RAF base that had been decommissioned, but when the space shuttle program came to the fore in the 80s, it needed a number of runways in different parts of the world if they needed to have an emergency landing procedure, and they had to come out of orbit at an unplanned time and in an unplanned place. Whether you're aware or not, the space shuttle had no engines other than the ones they used to give it the boost to get into space. But once in space, it had only maneuvering rockets, which were no use once they were in atmosphere. So when the space shuttle re-entered our Earth's atmosphere, it was essentially a gliding brick. And so the point of re-entry was always critical. Otherwise, they would undershoot or overshoot the Kennedy Space Center or the Andrews Air Force Base or wherever they were aiming to land. And if that was the case, then they needed to have other strips capable of landing. Australia has one. It's a very secretive strip. I would suggest looking there. Great place to hide. And let's face it, I'm sure they have plans. They had plans for the Australian summer to burn it. And I mean Australia. We've had some fires through Victoria. And while they are obviously badly affecting those people in the Wimmera who've been touched by them, they could have been so much worse. So much worse. The Grampians mountain range could have been decimated. The wildlife could have been decimated for a couple of 100 kilometres if it hadn't been so wet recently or for so long. Victoria had a very weird summer and they had a very weird lead up to summer in that it was like winter. Cold, wet. I was down there for it in November wearing long johns. It's, I grew up in Victoria. I don't remember it ever being like that. So I am a bit of a believer in the fact that maybe some of this weather engineering has been to protect us, and that's to keep everything damp. I've been in the Gold Coast hinterland and seen just how bad the leaf litter and the forest floors are. I mean, it's a foot deep, but it's damp. It's wet in place, like downright wet. You could stick a laser into it. It could be 1,000,000 watts. It's only going to go and create a steam cloud. So I do tend to believe that Australia has been saved in that regard a little bit this year. It might be a fantasy, it might not, but it's my bloody fantasy. Speaking of fantasies, hello, Courier Mail or Queensland. My. What an interesting mob you've turned out to be. If I cared enough, I'd probably go out and try and buy that piece of rag that you produce every week. But why would I bother when your people can't even create your own story? Instead, you've got to go to the ABC, see something that has been manipulated and edited and construed or misconstrued might be the word. And then you've decided to write an article about my place and Queensland and skew my place followers as anti-Semitics who are running for council. Wow. I could have given you Darren Bergwerf's phone number if any of your journalists wanted to actually do something called journalism and get the truth to the story. But oh no, instead you want to write a hit piece on my place. Bloody pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. And following on from the Courier Mail article, there are other small little bits of cocky shit covering, which is all really a newspaper is worth, really. Why would you buy a newspaper if you didn't have a cocky? What would you put in the bottom of the cage? Seriously. At any rate, places like, I think, the Sunshine Coast Daily, maybe the Gympie paper have started having a look at people in my place who are running for council. This weekend is the local council elections in Queensland. They've seen the anti-Semitic story or end that the Courier Mail were pushing, all based on the bullshit story, which I'm sure you guys remember. Darren very openly, very happily had the ABC down to a My Place market day in Frankston, and they did a lovely little story on him, and then asked him a few questions about the Holocaust, and which has nothing really to do with My Place or anything like that. Darren provided his personal views, which were, show me what evidence there is, give me some clue of what you're asking me, what are you talking about, what do you want me to say? They've taken that for whatever they've taken it for, and done a little story on him at the time. Incidentally, I think he was running for something at that time as well too. But now, apparently My Place people are anti-Semitic. I challenge you, Courier Mail, I challenge you to come with me tomorrow night to the Gold Coast, where there is a big market happening, and the My Place Gold Coast crew are getting together. I challenge you to come down with me. Maybe Cass might come along, and I'm sure Luke from My Place Gold Coast would be happy to have you along. Why don't you come down and see what My Place is all about? Or why don't we come with you and we'll go up to the Sunshine Coast, and we'll get the Sunshine Coast crew from, essentially Caboolture to Gympie to get together, and you can see the kinds of people that you, as journalists, are trying to plaster incorrectly. I wonder whether or not you'll be brave enough. I don't think so. I don't think there's a journalist left inside your organization, not a journalist in the true journalist sense. I think you're all just puppets who've taken the university indoctrination, and at the end of it, you got patted on the head and got told you were journalists. You haven't the vaguest idea. You're weak. Cowards. Come with me. Let me show you what My Place is about. All right? Don't be a coward. There's no need to fear anything in My Place, other than the fact you're going to find a lot of committed people with a lot of serious questions that you, as a committed journalist, should be bloody asking, instead of following blind propaganda from the communist ABC and regurgitating bullshit. You are weak. You are pathetic. And how dare you try and charge $3 for that piece of rag that is only worth a cocky shitting on every day. Quite seriously. Absolutely friggin' pathetic. On that note, I might love you and leave you tonight, folks. It's been a fun time. Let me just pop in here and see if anybody's asked me anything. I've got the right glasses on. See whether or not I can see. Great. A little bit of constitutional education going from the nod in there tonight. Don't forget, folks, if you want to catch up on some constitutional education, you can start with Magna Carta 1215. Nobody says you've got to learn it all, and please do not dismiss it as, it's not relevant because when it was written. Why would having Magna Carta 1297, because that's the year it was written, be any more relevant than Magna Carta 1215? Was that sort of 70-odd years earth-shattering in some way? You betcha, but not for the reasons you think. In that interim period, everything that gave us our power and right as sovereigns was taken from us. You need to know why. You need to know how. You don't need to know all the ins and outs of Magna Carta 1215. You need to know four things. They are the only four things that matter to us today, and they are the things that keep the government under control. Magna Carta 1297 doesn't have any of that. Any constitution using Magna Carta 1297 as a base doesn't have any of that. I just ask you to bear that in mind. Go and get your education. We, along Fitz and I, and Fitz is continuing the education himself online. Fitz and I have got 30-odd programs up there on YouTube you can see. You can get to them via the VOFHQ website. There's a tab for them. I urge you to go and have a look if you want to brush up and learn a little bit about terminology and how words are important. And my words, they are important. Finish off with this one tonight, folks. My place, Frankston, on the 13th of April, are having their Summer of Freedom get-together. Now, that's a week before I've got to be in Victoria. Never know. I might be at that one yet. If I am, I will just simply be turning up to partake. I'm not going to do a show. Last time, made a mess of it trying to do a show, so I'm just going to come. If I can get there to that, I will definitely get there. But there's going to be live music, and if it's anything like the last time I was there, bloody awesome live music. But you've got to book via email to make sure you get your way in the door. Contact at myplacefrankston.com is the email address. Entry is only $20, and I think it's through Thompson Lane, which, if you like, is the back entrance. There will be limited tickets available. I'll keep telling you more about that as the time gets closer. I think on that note, folks, going to love you and leave you tonight. It's been a very long and busy day. Thank you to the folks that I've bumped into today. Had a lovely conversation with Pamela and Greg, who were on their way to head up to Ainslie to see them. So lovely to see you guys. Nice to meet you, and glad you enjoy the show. Thanks for the support. Speaking of support, folks, we do need it. We need your help. And Vince is getting up me at every turn because I don't tell you this often or enough. So we do need your help. If there is any way you can help us so that we can help everyone, you can go to vofhq.com and you can either hit the donate button or you can join us as a member. We would love to have you from as little as $1.25 a week. And we would love to have you as part of the team. I keep telling you, we will have things coming up, especially for members later in the year, and that is the plan. We will have those things coming up for you, but later in the year. We're just trying to make sure we can get ourselves at least a bit deeper into the year, because at the moment, we ain't going nowhere without your support. Love you and leave you, folks, and make sure if you are heading out on the roads, dodge the dickheads.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!